Think about the last time you enjoyed a cold, refreshing beer with friends. It feels like a modern luxury, doesn't it? But what if I told you that 5,000 years ago, in the scorching heat of ancient Mesopotamia, someone was drinking that exact same liquid bread, except they were probably chewing on it at the same time? Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving into the frothy history of one of the world's oldest and most beloved recipes, beer. Created by the Sumerians, this drink wasn't just for happy hour. It was a feat of ancient engineering that changed how humans nourished themselves forever. Let's explore how a happy accident with some wet grain became a global phenomenon. Before we take a sip of this history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the why of things. The story of beer is not just a culinary history. It is the story of civilization itself, unfolding in the cradle of Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Imagine the Sumerians, a people of profound ingenuity, living in a world where every daily task was a step toward survival. One day, a vessel of grain was likely left out in the rain, forgotten just long enough for wild yeast to find its way into the damp mixture. This happy accident triggered the magical process of fermentation, transforming simple barley into a bubbling, potent liquid that would change the course of human history. This wasn't the clear, carbonated beverage we recognize today. It was a thick, nutrient-dense liquid bread, often served with actual pieces of bread still floating on the surface. For the Sumerians, this discovery was nothing short of divine. They didn't just stumble upon a drink, they engineered a fundamental shift in their diet and social structure. In a time when finding clean water was a constant struggle, the fermentation process acted as a natural purifier, making beer a safer alternative to the bacteria-ridden rivers. It was so central to their lives that they even had a goddess of brewing, Ninkasi, and wrote hymns that were essentially rhythmic recipes to ensure the beer was made perfectly every time. This highlights the incredible ingenuity of a society that saw potential in a bowl of spoiled grain. They realized that through this process, they could preserve the caloric value of their harvest in a portable, storable, and deeply satisfying form. This early version of beer served as a bridge between nomadic gathering and a settled life of agriculture. It provided the energy needed for the grueling labor of building the world's first cities, and the social glue to keep those communities together. When we look back at these 5,000-year-old clay jars, we see more than just a recipe. We see the birth of a technology that allowed humans to master their environment through chemistry. The Sumerians weren't just drinking for leisure, they were fueling a revolution that would eventually lead to the complex economies and organized societies we live in today. As the centuries rolled on, the thick bread-filled drink of the Sumerians began its long transformation into the variety of styles we see today. From the temples of Mesopotamia, the knowledge of fermentation spread across the ancient world, reaching the Egyptians, who used it as both a daily staple and a sacred offering to the gods. This was a recipe that traveled, adapting to every culture it touched. While the Sumerians gave us the foundational drink, born from the sheer ingenuity of grain fermentation, later civilizations refined the process. In medieval Europe, for instance, monks became the master brewers, moving the production from open-air clay jars to the cool, controlled environments of monastery cellars. It was during this period that hops were introduced, adding the bitterness we recognize today, and, more importantly, acting as a natural preservative that allowed beer to be shipped over long distances. The social significance of beer also underwent a massive shift. In ancient times, it was a source of survival, a way to consume calories and avoid the dangers of contaminated water. However, as societies became more complex, beer became the ultimate social glue. It was the drink of the masses, served in Greek banquets and Roman festivals, often stored in sophisticated glass vessels for the elite or simple ceramic jars for the common folk. It bridged the gap between the sacred and the profane, being used in religious rituals while simultaneously fueling the conversations of philosophers and the strength of laborers. This evolution from a survival necessity to a symbol of hospitality and community highlights how a single ancient invention can shape the cultural fabric of entire continents. What's truly fascinating is how the essence of the Sumerian liquid bread remained intact despite these changes. Even as the floating bits of bread disappeared and the liquid became clearer, the core chemistry, the interaction between grain, water, and yeast stayed exactly the same. This consistency allowed beer to become one of the first truly global commodities. It wasn't just a drink, it was a form of currency, a medical treatment, and a reason for people to gather. By the time the Industrial Revolution arrived, beer was already a cornerstone of human interaction, proving that the Sumerian discovery was not just a temporary fix for hunger, but a permanent pillar of global civilization. The journey from a muddy, bread-filled clay jar in Mesopotamia to the sleek, pressurized aluminum cans of the 21st century is a marvel of human persistence. When you walk into a modern brewery today, you are greeted by towering stainless steel vats and computer-controlled sensors that monitor every degree of temperature and every milligram of CO2. At first glance, this high-tech environment seems worlds apart from a Sumerian kitchen. However, the aha moment arrives when you realize that despite the chrome and the silicon, the biological core of the process has not changed in 5 millennia. The modern master brewer is essentially doing exactly what the ancient Sumerian priestess did, orchestrating a delicate dance of fermentation, where yeast consumes sugar to create alcohol and carbonation. This continuity is a testament to the sheer brilliance of that original Sumerian liquid bread recipe. They didn't have microscopes to see the yeast, yet they understood its power to transform grain into something safer and more nutritious than the raw ingredients themselves. Today, we use centrifugal filters to ensure our beer is crystal clear, removing the floating bread that was once a staple of the experience. We use pressurized tanks to force carbonation into the liquid, whereas the Sumerians accepted the natural, gentle fizz of active fermentation. But the soul of the drink, the transformation of barley through water and heat, remains an unchanged inheritance from the cradle of civilization. The technology we use today is simply a more precise way of honoring that ancient discovery. When you see the thick, creamy head of foam on a stout or the golden bubbles in a pilsner, you are witnessing the exact same chemical reaction that fascinated the people of Ur and Uruk. We have spent 5,000 years perfecting the packaging and the purity, but we haven't found a way to improve upon the fundamental magic of the Sumerian fermentation process. Every time a modern production line fills thousands of bottles per hour, it is repeating a cycle of ingenuity that began with a simple, accidental soak of grain in a prehistoric jar. It is a powerful reminder that our most advanced industries are often just polished versions of the survival instincts of our ancestors. This journey from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to your local pub proves that human ingenuity doesn't always require high technology. Sometimes it only requires the curiosity to see potential in a bowl of wet grain. The Sumerians didn't just invent a drink, they engineered a way to preserve life, foster community, and celebrate the harvest in a form that could be shared across a table. Their legacy is alive in every bubble, every drop of foam, and every toasted cheers exchanged between friends today. It invites us to look at the most mundane items in our lives, the things we often take for granted, and realize that they carry the DNA of ancestors who were just as clever and social as we are. As you finish your drink, remember that the past isn't a collection of dusty dates in a book. It is a living, breathing, and sometimes even bubbling part of our present. The next time you see a beer, don't just see a beverage, see 5,000 years of human history looking back at you, reminding us that while our tools change, our desire to create and connect is eternal. It is truly profound to consider that every time we raise a glass today, we are participating in a ritual that has remained virtually unchanged for over 5 millennia. The story of beer is a vivid reminder that the modern world is built upon a foundation of ancient survival instincts and accidental genius. What started as a thick, nutrient-rich liquid bread in the sun-drenched plains of Sumer has evolved into a global symbol of relaxation and social connection. We may have replaced the floating bits of bread with sophisticated filtration and substituted clay jars for pressurized cakes, but the biological magic of fermentation remains the same gift given to us by the cradle of civilization. Thank you so much for watching! If you enjoyed this journey back to ancient Sumer, please like, subscribe, and share this video. We want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our other videos to discover the hidden history behind the objects in your home.